I recently took the words of Emmanuel Macron on Africa. Every conscious African should understand very quickly what he was able to tell us and what it means. General Tianet said not long ago that the change of tactics or strategies of the French forces in Africa, I think he came to confirm it, is about dissolving and keeping a solid foundation. Emmanuel Macron said it so well that we can only thank him for this sincerity, even if some wanted to put the powder in the eyes of their population. But reality ends up catching up too. They will not leave some countries. They have just dissolved the system. You will no longer see them in bases, but in the embassies, they will be there. They will build security companies to secure their companies that exist in these countries. But the soldiers will be there. You will no longer see them in uniforms or gathered in bases. That's all it means. They will reorganize, but they will be there. He spoke of politeness towards certain heads of state by giving them the primacy of announcing the breakup or the departure of the French forces. It doesn't matter to us much, we can say, but all we know is that if you want to break up with these imperialist forces, it's simple. We denounce the agreements. It all starts there. I think that the example of Chad, in any case, is palpable. They started by denouncing the agreements. Otherwise, if we don't denounce the agreements, just say that the bases are leaving, we haven't done anything. Because the problem is in the colonial agreements of defense that have been signed since independence. The most dangerous are not the ones you see in the bases. The most dangerous are the military advisors. The military advisors exist in all these countries. They existed in Burkina until the end of 2022, until we took responsibility. And who are these military advisors? These are the ones who are supposed to put France's policy into practice here. They have to work to make our armies very weak, so that France can always have the argument to exist here. Under Blaise Compaoré, they succeeded. Our sentinels took the guard with sticks. That's what France wants from our armies. When we get to this stage, we don't have a choice but to want them to settle. But the Burkina army managed at some point to get rid of the military advisors. Unfortunately, I think that in 2010, after the operation at Tapuano, when the French saw that the Burkina army still had the capacity to react to terrorism, they called the chief of staff in France. They instructed him to take back the military advisors in the whole structure. Well, he didn't accept it. But when he came back to France, the politicians instructed him to accept the military advisors. And that's when the military advisors returned to the Burkina army in 2019. With all the consequences we know, the army was disappearing in the years 2020, 2021. And besides, that's when many soldiers had to desert because there was no hope. We were collapsing. This is how they work. In the army, in the general staff of the army, in all the staff of the army, in the schools, it is they who are supposed to dictate the policy of our army. It is they who tell us how many to recruit, when to recruit, and what to do. They are in the schools to tell us how to train them, and so on. As long as these military advisors are there, you are not independent. Your army will just have the appearance of an army that will be doing parades, circuses. But when the war comes, you will realize that the parade is one thing, but the war is another thing. We have to break the agreements. This is the only way to have an independent army and to build and be strong. But many people may not understand this. And even with these agreements, France chooses in our states officers to train them. It goes through these same agreements. But in reality, these officers who go to train, for the most part for France, they come to serve the French state in their country. They do not come to serve our countries. They train them so that they can serve the interests of the French state. I have proof of this. When we revolted, a lot of officers in Burkina who were trained in France were immediately contacted to tell them that it was time to take action because they were trained to serve the interests of France. Most of these officers realize this. We took action and we continue to follow up. When an officer trained in France arrives in his country, and unfortunately, either by accident or on the battlefield, in France, there is a night of mourning for the dead in the army, as elsewhere. On the night of mourning for the dead, we cite the name of the officer in question and we say, "Dead for France." They do not train him to serve his country. They train him to serve their state. And in many African states, there are plenty of these officers. God knows how many are patriots. This is a lesson that Emmanuel Macron has given to the leaders of African states, to catch up and to be able to really fight against imperialism. In addition to that, he also insulted all Africans in his words. There is a part that caught my attention, where he spoke of ingratitude. And that ingratitude is a disease that is not transmissible to humans. He is human. Our ingratitude is not transmissible to him. This is how this gentleman sees Africa, sees Africans. We are not humans in his eyes. Maybe he is the one who is not human. He does not put himself in the class of humans. But if he has good ingratitude, it is him. I think that if he is not an atheist and he prays every morning when he wakes up and prays, he should also pray for Africans, because it is thanks to our ancestors that there is today a France. He should pray for us. In his eyes, we should not be humans. We are more than humans. These are very strong messages that he sends. I cry for the French people, but still he is good for Africa. He is a necessary evil for us. Those who want to wake up, wake up. Those who do not want to wake up, as we say, we cannot wake up someone who does not sleep. Africans must wake up. We must work to be independent, to at least make our people know happiness. And the fight against imperialism is that. We must decolonize the mentality, take all this data into account, because the world gives us so many examples to see. For them, there is no morality. They can designate you as terrorist today, but tomorrow you are a hero. By their simple mouth, they decide what they do. They talk about democracy, but they make themselves of constitutional coups. They talk about human rights, but they deceive people elsewhere. Africans must wake up. Africa must wake up. And the fight against imperialism is permanent. I invite you to join this fight, to work so that we are truly independent, that we are self-sufficient, and that we can develop no happiness, which is what our people aspire to. Thank you. I wish you a very good day, a very good week, and a very good year. And that at the end of this year, 2025, by doing the retrospective, we must say that we have brought a great plus to our nation. Thank you all very much. May God bless you, and may God protect our dear homeland. The homeland or death, we will win. I wish you a very good and happy year 2025. Through you to all the staff working at the institution present at Burkina Faso. I wish that 2025 will be a year full of health for you, your family, and your loved ones, so that you can give the maximum of yourself in the work for the happiness of our people. I wish that 2025 will be a year where you will see all your projects crowned with success, prosperity, and above all, that throughout the year, God guides our actions, protects us, and watches over us. I also wish to remind everyone that the fight against imperialism must be integrated into our genes now. It must be a fight that is being fought relentlessly and every day, because many people have not understood what this fight so far is. Our brave fighting forces are on the ground. They lead the fight against the manipulated valets. They are doing their best to bring peace to our dear Burkina Faso. As much as they are doing it, our laborious masses, which are farmers and farmers, are also fighting so that we can achieve food self-sufficiency through the support of all the technicians of the Ministry of Agriculture. This is very important. And as much as they are also fighting in the administration, we must fight to change our mentality. This mental decolonization is the most difficult part. This is why we want to constantly remind you that we must change our mentality, return to our roots, and fight. This is also the fight against imperialism. Every opportunity is given to us to understand imperialism and its manifestation.
Emmanuel Macron